So guys, now we are driving the AMT version of the Punch, and this engine is the same, but it's mated to a 5-speed AMT. As you can see, the drive selector here is different: reverse, neutral, automatic, and of course the manual mode, which can be engaged by pushing the drive selector to the left. And
city drive mode activated.
If you're going to be driving within the city in bumper to bumper traffic, where you're going to be changing gears very frequently, using the clutch, the gear lever, then obviously the AMT makes a lot of sense, and for the most part it works as well as an AMT should work. We have seen a lot of AMTs of late and they work rather well. They are the most cost effective way of getting the convenience of an automatic. And in terms of the differences over the manual, of course the gear shifts cannot be as fast as in a manual. So if you are going to be driving aggressively, if you want a spirited driving experience, then probably the manual suits you better. But if you want the convenience, go with the AMT. Another difference is that the tacho doesn't reach 6000 rpm. It shifts up a little early at 5000 rpm. And apart from that, the fuel efficiency also, in my personal observation, is slightly less as compared to the manual. So while in the manual, in the city mode, you'll get 20 and a half. In AMT, you'll get 18, 19 and a half. So there is a difference of 1 to 2 kmpl. In the city also, while in the manual mode you'll get 14 to 15 kmpl, here in the AMT you'll get 13 to 14. So there is a minor difference, but it's not something that you should bother about. The fuel efficiency on the AMT is also very good. Overall, it's a fantastic package, and I really believe that the AMT on this car really makes a lot of sense. And if you are going to be driving regularly within the city, this is the version to go for. So guys, as you would know, Tata Punch also comes with Traction Pro modes, which helps it come out of some tricky situations. It can do a little bit of soft roading. So to start off this demonstration of what this car is capable of, we are going to show you this customized track and how this car deals with the tribulation that has been put forward to it. As you can see, the tire marks are there. On the right track, you would see a sort of a dark ice. So the conditions here are to simulate ice, and on the right, basically the car's front right tire, which is the drive wheel, will not have any traction whatsoever. And what we'll have to do is, basically the car will give us a notification that the wheel is stuck, because the entire drive will go to the right wheel. And then after that, we have to accept that notification, stop the car and press the brake and accelerate, so that the traction control can come into action. And basically what it'll do is it'll brake the right wheel and send the drive to the left wheel, so that the wheel with the traction can pull the car out. So let's see whether this works. As I mentioned, there's a slab of ice there to cut traction. This friend here will let us know when we are on that slab of ice. So now the right wheel is on that slab of ice, and if I accelerate now, and see, the right wheel was spinning, so it gives me a notification that the wheel is stuck. So I'll acknowledge that, and now it tells me to brake and accelerate gradually, which means that the brake will be applied to the right wheel and the left wheel will try to pull the car out. And as you can see, the car has managed to come out now. So this essentially is like brake locking differential, which is a component of traction control, and it helps the car come out of situations which are not very seriously challenging. So that's a good feature to have included, and that's just one of the things that we have to do with the Tata Punch today. There are a lot of other challenges that we are going to go through, so stay tuned. So now, since this is an experience area, there is a little circle there, as you can see, and the challenge is to go in and come out without touching any of these poles that you see around. So let's see whether we can do that. You're allowed to reverse and forward, but you have to come out front forward. So that's one turn. out. And we are through. So what you see ahead is an incline, and this is basically a very steep incline that's been made with rubble, and it's essentially to show that the car can climb up inclines, but it's followed by a very sharp decline also in what Tata is calling a gully crossing. So it's a very sharp decline as well as a turn. After that there is a side ramp, and that would essentially show how the car can handle itself on banks. There's a car up ahead, so we'll let it pass first, and then we'll take our turn. So the car has a very good approach and departure angle, so basically the nose will not dive into the ground. Also, the articulation on this car is reasonably good for this kind of an application. Turning radius is also not much, as I demonstrated in that little game. So we have a green signal. This incline doesn't mean much, honestly speaking. So as you can see, it's a very steep slope, and we are going to maneuver our way through it. We just have to use the brakes to make sure that the car doesn't go very fast. There is some wheel articulation that will happen here. That's pretty good actually. And now we are completely banked. So as you can see, I'm at a lower angle as compared to you. And this kind of terrain is generally charted for SUVs, but Tata just want to demonstrate that the Punch can do a little bit of soft loading, so they have created this little route here. Again, there is an incline. It's not much. I think it can be negotiated by any car, but just to make it interesting, they have created another incline here. Little ramp ahead. It's not much of an obstacle, to be very honest, but just for the fun of it, Tata have introduced it. It somewhat resembles a very bad, broken, relatively tractionless incline with rubble, and I think this car is going to handle it pretty easily. Yep. Good turning radius too. And now we go down. So in these kind of scenarios, if you don't have enough clearance, what happens is the nose of the car scrubs with the ground, and here you have sufficient clearance up front and very little overhang. So this car handles that aspect very, very well. Now this part, as you can see, is for wheel articulation. Now this car comes with independent front suspension and semi-independent rear suspension. The holes, as I see, are not too deep, but for a car which is this size, they are quite challenging. I mean, if you want to take a hatchback through this section, it will probably not pass. So in that sense, the context should be clear. It's not meant for a proper rugged 4x4 SUV, but for something which can do a bit of soft roading. This poses a bit of a challenge, and basically shows you how much you can twist the axles of the car. So that's what you're going to be testing the car here for. So the trick for going through these articulation challenges is to go slow, and the car is doing rather well. No problem. Now another important feature of the car, as told to us in the spec sheet and the release, is that this car can wade through water up to 370 mm, and there is a big water hole, as you can see here. So the car has to go through it, and that's exactly what you're going to do now. It's quite slushy, and even if there's no challenge, sometimes a car can get stuck in these conditions because this soil is pretty clayey. It's not a very grippy surface. The next challenge is a side slope, and the car ahead of us is going to take the side slope challenge next. So let's see how it fares. It's similar to that banking that we did when we came out from that gully crossing. So it's going to essentially bank the car on one side. As you can see, there is very little traction and the wheels of the cars are spinning. So this surface itself is a bit of a challenge. And there is a good possibility that a car can get stuck here as well. Alright, here we go on the side banking or side slope. Nice and easy. And the car is losing traction. Let's see. So as I mentioned, the soil here is quite clayey, so it's difficult to find traction sometimes, but we manage to get out of it eventually. And now the next section is for rock crawling, where you have a dry, rough surface ahead. Big bouldery kind of surface, and it essentially tests clearance more than anything else. And we are through with that section as well, and I think we are done. So guys, what you need to understand is that the Punch is not an off-roader, but for an everyday car, for an inexpensive soft-roader, this has some capability. If you are going to be taking it out off the road, it can handle soft-roading to a certain extent. The traction mode does enable it to get out of mildly tricky situations, and in that context, knowing the kind of segment that it sits in, it gives you an added capability to take care of rough surfaces, tractionless surfaces. Although I should be amply clear that this is not an off-roader or a 4x4 vehicle, and discretion should be used when you're taking it out in challenging conditions. I really hope that this video was of some use to you. If you liked it, hit the like button, subscribe to Motoroids, and until next time, this is Amit Changani signing off. Rev hard, rev free, and drive safe.